A down-on-his-luck janitor, drowning in debt, receives a mysterious letter. His estranged uncle left him a crumbling farmhouse. Everyone told him to sell it and walk away. But when he stepped inside, he found something that would change his life forever. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. The letter that changed everything. The rain fell in heavy sheets against the grimy window of Marcus Wheeler's tiny Chicago apartment, the sound of relentless drumming that matched the pounding in his head. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the eviction notice in his hands. The third one this year. The words blurred as his fingers tightened around the paper. 30 days to pay or get out. Across from him, his wife, Lena, rubbed her temples, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. Her scrubs were rumpled from another double shift at the hospital, and the dark circles under her eyes told the same story it always did. They were drowning. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered, her voice raw. Marcus didn't answer. What was there to say? He was a janitor, pushing 42, with nothing to show for 20 years of mopping floors and emptying trash cans except bad knees and a mountain of debt. Their son, Jaden, coughed weakly from the other room. Another asthma attack, another medical bill they couldn't afford. Then the knock came. Not a landlord, not a bill collector. A courier with a thick envelope, marked with the name of a law firm Marcus had never heard of. Wheeler and Associates, Lincoln, Nebraska. His stomach twisted. The only Wheeler he knew outside of himself was his Uncle Clifford, a man who had vanished from his life decades ago, leaving behind nothing but a handful of strange postcards and a reputation for being eccentric. Lena watched as Marcus tore open the envelope, her tired eyes flickering with cautious hope. "What is it?" Marcus scanned the letter, his pulse quickening. "Dear Mr. Wheeler, we regret to inform you of the passing of your uncle, Clifford James Wheeler. As his sole surviving relative, you've been named the beneficiary of his estate, including the property located at 1873 Hollow Creek Road, Redwater, Nebraska." Lena let out a sharp laugh. A farmhouse? In the middle of nowhere? Marcus kept reading. The lawyer's letter was dry, legal, no explanation, no sentiment. Just the cold facts. Clifford was dead. The farmhouse was his. And if he wanted it, he had to claim it in person within 30 days. "It's probably a dump," Lena muttered, already turning back to the stack of unpaid bills. "Sell it fast. We need cash, not some rotting shack." But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this. Clifford had been a mystery his whole life. A man who disappeared for years, then sent bizarre postcards from places like Peru and Iceland with no return address. Once, when Marcus was 12, Clifford had shown up unannounced, handed him an old pocket watch, and said, "Time's the only thing you can't get back, kid. Don't waste it." Then he was gone again. Now he was dead, and Marcus was the only one left to deal with whatever he'd left behind. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in front of the farmhouse, the Nebraska wind biting through his thin jacket. The place was worse than he'd imagined. Peeling paint, sagging porch, windows so grimy they looked black. The fields around it were overgrown, skeletal trees clawing the gray sky. "Yeah, this'll sell real quick," he muttered, kicking a rusticant out of his path. The front door groaned as he pushed it open, the smell of dust and mildew thick in the air. The inside was a graveyard of old furniture, a moth-eaten couch, a table buried under yellowed newspapers, a rocking chair that creaked despite no one touching it. Marcus sighed. This was a waste of time. Then his foot hit a loose floorboard. He froze. Kneeling, he pried it up with his keys, revealing a small, rusted safe beneath. His hands shook as he turned the dial, no combination, no clue. But when he yanked at the handle, it gave way with a screech. Inside was a single envelope, and inside that, 3 deeds. Chicago downtown properties. His breath caught. These weren't just any buildings. These were historic, prime real estate, worth millions, and they were in his name. A note fluttered out, written in Clifford's messy scrawl. "If you're reading this, you didn't take the easy way out. Now it's your turn to build something lasting." Marcus's heart hammered. This changed everything. But then his eyes caught the date on the deeds. and the name of the previous owner. His blood ran cold, because Clifford hadn't just given him a fortune. He'd given him a problem, and it was one that could get him killed. The hidden catch. The silence in the farmhouse was suffocating. Marcus stared at the deeds, his fingers trembling as he traced the faded ink. 3 buildings. Downtown Chicago. The addresses alone made his pulse spike. Prime real estate, the kind of property developers fought over. But then his eyes locked onto name at the bottom of each deed. Vincent Moretti. A cold sweat broke across his skin. Moretti wasn't just some forgotten landlord. He was a ghost from Chicago's underworld, a man who had vanished 20 years ago after a federal investigation into money laundering. Rumor had it he'd skipped the country, or been buried in an unmarked grave. And now, somehow, his buildings belonged to Clifford. No, not just Clifford. To him, Marcus's mind raced. How had his uncle gotten tangled up with a man like Moretti? And why had he left these deeds, these problems, for him to find? A floorboard creaked behind him. Marcus spun around, heart in his throat. The house was empty, but the air felt charged, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. He stuffed the deeds into his jacket, his hands shaking. He needed to get out of here. Now, the drive back to Chicago was a blur. Rain smeared the windshield, the wipers struggling to keep up as Marcus white-knuckled the steering wheel. Lena had texted twice. "Did you find anything? Are you okay?" But he hadn't answered. How could he? "Hey, honey, turns out Uncle Clifford left us a fortune tied to mob." Surprise. He pulled into the parking lot of a dingy motel outside the city. Too wired to go home. Inside the cramped room, he spread the deeds on the bed, studying every word. The dates didn't make sense. The transactions were dated after Moretti's disappearance, signed by a lawyer Marcus didn't recognize. There was something else, too. A business card tucked between the pages, brittle with age. Elias Voss, attorney at law. A phone number was scrawled on the back in Clifford's handwriting. Marcus dialed before he could second-guess himself. The line rang twice before a raspy voice answered. "Voss!" Marcus swallowed hard. "Mr. Voss, my name is Marcus Wheeler. I think you knew my uncle, Clifford." A sharp inhale, then silence. "Mr. Voss, you found the deeds." It wasn't a question. Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. "Yeah, and I need to know what the hell is going on." Another pause. Then, low and urgent. "Not over the phone. Meet me tomorrow. The old diner on West Adams. Noon." And Wheeler, "Yeah, don't tell anyone you called me." The line went dead. Marcus barely slept. By morning, his nerves were frayed, his reflection in the motel mirror gaunt and shadowed. He drove to the diner in a haze, scanning every car that passed, half expecting black SUVs to swarm him at any second. The diner was a relic. Vinyl booths, the smell of burnt coffee, a flickering neon sign that read EATS in tire red letters. An old man sat in the corner booth, his suit impeccably pressed despite the frayed cuffs. "Elias Voss." Marcus slid into the seat across from him. "You knew my uncle." Voss stirred his coffee, his eyes darting to the door before answering. "Clifford was a good man. Stupid, but good." "What's that supposed to mean?" Voss leaned in, his voice a whisper. He thought he could outsmart them. Them. The word hung in the air like a threat. Marcus's stomach twisted. "Moretti's people?" Voss didn't confirm or deny. He just pulled a yellowed envelope from his briefcase and pushed it across the table. "Clifford left this for you. Read it, then burn it." Marcus tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in his uncle's jagged handwriting. "Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're holding the keys to a kingdom built on lies. Moretti's buildings were bought with dirty money, but the deeds are clean. I made sure of that. Problem is, his family doesn't care about legalities. They want what's theirs. You have 2 choices. Run. Sell the buildings, take the cash, and disappear. Or fight. Claim what's yours and prove you're not the easy mark they think you are. Either way, trust no one, especially not the cops. Clifford." Marcus looked up, his throat dry. "What aren't you telling me?" Voss's face was grim. The Morettis think Clifford stole from them. And now that you've got those deeds, they'll come for you next. A bell jingled as the diner door opened. 2 men in dark suits walked in, their eyes scanning the room. Voss went pale. We're done here. He threw a 20 on the table and stood. Don't go home. Don't call your wife. If you want to live, disappear. Then he was gone, slipping out the back door like a ghost. Marcus sat frozen. The note crumpled in his fist. The men at the door were staring right at him, and one of them was reaching into his jacket. The wrong kind of attention. Marcus didn't breathe. The diner's chatter faded into white noise as the man in the suit locked eyes with him. Cold, assessing, like a predator sizing a prey. His hand hovered near his jacket, fingers brushing against something hidden beneath the fabric. A gun? Adrenaline burned through Marcus's veins. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his legs refused to move. Then the man's phone rang. He glanced away, answering in a low voice, and Marcus seized a moment. He dropped a crumpled bill on the table, grabbed his uncle's letter, and slipped out booth, keeping his head down as he moved toward the back exit. The kitchen door swung open as a waitress emerged, blocking his path for a heart-stopping second before he sidestepped her and pushed through. The alley behind the diner reeked of garbage and stale grease. Marcus broke into a run, his shoes slapping against wet pavement. He didn't stop until he was 3 blocks away, ducking into a convenience store to catch his breath. His reflection in the glass cooler door was wild-eyed, his hair damp with sweat despite the chill in the air. They found me already. Clifford's warning echoed in his skull. Trust no one, especially not the cops. But what was he supposed to do? He couldn't go home, not if it meant leading the Morettas straight to Lena and Jaden. He couldn't stay here, and he sure as hell couldn't fight back alone. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Lena, again. He hesitated, then answered, forcing calm into his voice. Hey. Marcus, were you? Her tone was sharp with worry. You didn't answer any of my texts. Did you find anything at the farmhouse? He squeezed his eyes shut. Lie. You have to lie. No, just a bunch of junk. I'll be home soon. A pause. Then quieter. You're a terrible liar, Mark. His chest ached. She knew him too well. Something's wrong, she pressed. Tell me? A car slowed outside the store, and Marcus tensed, but it was just an old sedan, the driver squinting at a map. He exhaled. Not over the phone. I'll explain when I get there. Just keep the doors locked, okay? He hung up before she could argue. The bus ride home took forever. Every passenger seemed suspicious. The guy in a hoodie texting furiously. The woman with the oversized sunglasses watching the streets too closely. Marcus kept the deeds and Clifford's letter tucked inside his jacket, his fingers brushing against them like a talisman. By the time he reached his apartment building, the sun had dipped below the skyline, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. He scanned the street before heading inside, taking the stairs 2 at a time. The second he stepped into the hallway, he knew something was off. Their front door was slightly ajar. Marcus's blood turned to ice. He crept forward, pressing his ear to the gap. Silence. Then a faint creak of floorboards. No. He pushed the door open slowly, his pulse roaring his ears. The living room was a wreck. Couch cushions slashed, drawers dumped onto the floor, family photos shattered against the wall. Lena? His voice cracked. Jaden? No answer. Then a whimper from the bedroom. Marcus sprinted down the hall, nearly tripping over an overturned lamp. The bedroom door was closed. He threw it open. Lena sat on the bed, gripping Jaden's shoulders, both of them pale with fear. A man stood over them, his back to Marcus, tall, broad-shouldered, his suit too expensive for this neighborhood. He turned slowly, revealing a face Marcus had only seen in grainy newspaper photos. Salvatore Moretti, Vincent's son, and he was smiling. Marcus Wheeler. His voice was smooth, almost friendly. We've been looking for you. Jaden flinched, and Lena's grip on him tightened, her eyes blazing. Get away from my family. Salvatore ignored her, stepping toward Marcus. You have something that belongs to us. Marcus's hand inched toward his jacket. The deeds. The letter. Proof. But pulling them out now will be signing their death warrants. I don't know what you're talking about, he lied. Salvatore chuckled. See, that's the problem. Your uncle said the same thing. He reached into his pocket, and Marcus braced for a gun, but instead, he tossed a small object onto the bed. A pocket watch. The one Clifford had given Marcus when he was 12. The engraving on the back was now visible. A single word, worn but unmistakable. Run. Salvatore's smile widened. Clock's ticking, Wheeler. A dangerous bargain. The pocket watch gleamed on the rumpled bedsheet, its ticking suddenly deafening in the tense silence. Marcus couldn't tear his eyes away from that single damning word. Run. Etched into the metal. Clifford's final warning. Salvatore Moretti took another step forward, his polished shoes crunching over broken glass from the shattered nightstand lamp. You're holding 3 properties that belong to my family, he said, his voice deceptively calm. We want them back. Lena's sharp inhale cut through the room. Marcus didn't dare look at her, didn't dare confirm the unspoken question in her eyes. What have you gotten us into? Jaden, pressed against his mother's side, trembled. His asthma inhaler lay just out of reach on the floor, knocked over during the ransacking. Marcus's hands curled into fists. I don't have them on me, Marcus lied, his jacket heavy with the deeds. Salvatore's smile didn't reach his cold eyes. I don't believe you. He reached into his suit pocket again, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a photograph, tossed it onto the bed beside the watch. Marcus's stomach lurched. It was a grainy surveillance photo of him leaving the farmhouse, the deeds clearly visible in his hand. They've been watching me the whole time. Salvatore tilted his head. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign those properties back over to us. And in return, his gaze flicked to Jaden, then back to Marcus. Your family stays breathing. A red haze blurred Marcus's vision. He took a step forward before he could stop himself. You touch them, and I swear. Salvatore laughed, a rich, amused sound that made Marcus's skin crawl. You'll what? You're a janitor, Wheeler. You don't have the connections or the cash to fight us. He adjusted his cufflinks. But I'm feeling generous. You have 48 hours to bring the deeds to our offices downtown. After that, a shrug, we'll find them ourselves. He strode past Marcus, pausing at the doorway. Oh, and Wheeler, tell your wife to pack a bag, just in case. The door clicked shut behind him. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Lena surged to her feet, her voice a furious whisper. What the hell is going on, Marcus? Marcus sank onto the edge of the bed, the weight of the past 24 hours crashing down on him. He pulled the deeds from his jacket and handed them to her, watching as her eyes scanned the documents, widening with each line. These are worth. She trailed off, shaking her head. Millions. Millions, Mark. And your uncle just, what? Stole them from the mob. He didn't steal them. The words tumbled out before Marcus could stop them. He bought them from a shell company tied to Moretti's lawyer. They're clean on paper, but the Morettis don't care about paperwork, Lena finished, her face paling. She grabbed Marcus's arm. We have to go to the police. Marcus shook his head. Clifford's note said not to trust them. What if Moretti owns cops downtown? He ran a hand through his hair. We need to think. There has to be. Jaden's wheezing cut him off. The boy clutched his chest, his breath coming in short, painful gasps. Asthma attack. Stress-induced. Lena was already grabbing the inhaler, her nurse's training kicking in. We can't stay here, she said as Jaden took shaky puffs. They trashed our home, Marcus. They threatened our son. Marcus looked around to destruction. Their meager belongings destroyed, their safety shattered. The pocket watch still ticked mockingly on the bed. Run. But running wasn't an option. Not anymore. He met Lena's gaze. Pack enough for 3 days. We're leaving, but we're not running. He picked up the watch, snapping it shut with a decisive click. We're going to fight back. The safe house. The car ride was silent, except for Jaden's labored breathing in the back seat. Marcus kept checking the rearview mirror, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every set of headlights behind them felt like a threat. Lena clutched the deeds in her lap, like they were both a lifeline and a curse. "Where are we going?" she finally whispered. Marcus exhaled. "Somewhere they won't find us." He took a series of turns, doubling back twice to make sure they weren't followed before pulling into the parking lot of a rundown motel on the outskirts of the city. The flickering neon sign read Sunset Inn, though the S had burned out long ago. Marcus paid in cash under a fake name, something Clifford had taught him years ago during one of his rare visits. Always have an exit plan, kid. At the time, Marcus had thought his uncle was just paranoid. Now, the lesson felt like the only thing keeping them alive. The room smelled of mildew and stale cigarettes, but the locks were sturdy. Lena immediately set about wiping down surfaces with antiseptic wipes from her purse, while Jaden collapsed onto one of the twin beds, his inhaler still clutched in his hand. Marcus pulled out his phone and hesitated. Then he dialed the only person he could think of who might know what to do, Elias Voss. The lawyer answered on the first ring. "You're still alive. That's something." "They came to my house," Marcus hissed, keeping his voice low. "They threatened my family." A pause. "Then you're not at home now, I hope." "No, but we can't hide forever." "What do I do, Voss?" The line crackled with static. "There's a woman. Goes by Renata. She handles problems like yours. I'll text you an address. Go there at dawn." "And Wheeler?" "Yeah. Don't bring the deeds." The call ended. Lena cornered him the second he hung up. "Who was that?" Marcus hesitated, then told her about Voss's contact. The mysterious Renata. Lena's face darkened. "You want to trust some stranger your mob-connected uncle knew?" she snapped. "After everything that's happened? What choice do we have?" Marcus ran a hand over his face. "We can't run. We can't fight them head-on. But maybe someone who knows how they operate can help." Jaden's quiet voice cut through the tension. "What did they find us here?" The fear in his son's eyes shattered Marcus's heart. He sat beside him, squeezing his shoulder. "They won't. I promise." The lie tasted bitter on his tongue. Sleep didn't come. Marcus spent the night staring at the ceiling, listening to Lena's uneven breathing and Jaden's occasional coughs. At 4:30 a.m., he slipped out of bed, leaving a note on the pillow. "Gone to meet a contact. Back by noon. Don't open the door for anyone." The city streets were eerily empty at dawn. Marcus parked 3 blocks from the address Voss had sent, a nondescript storefront in a neighborhood that straddled the line between industrial and abandoned. The sign above the door read Red's Pawn and Loan, but the windows were barred, the door reinforced with steel. He knocked twice, then paused, then knocked once more. The door creaked open, revealing a wiry woman in her 50s with sharp gray eyes and a shotgun slung casually over her shoulder. "Marcus Wheeler," she said. "Not a question. Took you long enough to show up." Marcus blinked. You know who I am?" Renata smirked. "Knew your uncle. Knew you'd come crawling eventually." She stepped aside. "Well, you letting Moretti's boys tail you, or you coming in?" Marcus stepped inside and froze. The back wall of the pawn shop wasn't lined with jewelry or electronics like he'd expected. It was covered in blueprints. His blueprints. The 3 downtown buildings from the deeds. Every floor, every exit, every structural weakness meticulously mapped out. And beside them, photos, documents, a timeline of Moretti's operations spanning decades. Renata locked the door behind him with a decisive click. "Clifford didn't just leave you buildings, kid," she said, lighting a cigarette. "He left you a war. You ready to hear how we're going to win it?" The Devil's Blueprint. The scent of gun oil and stale tobacco clung to the air as Marcus stepped further into Renata's makeshift war room. His eyes darted across the wall of blueprints. Each line, each note in Clifford's familiar jagged handwriting, sending a jolt through him. His uncle hadn't just left him property. He'd left him a trap. Renata blew smoke toward the ceiling, watching him with the calculating gaze of a hawk. "Your uncle was a pain in my ass for 20 years, she said, tapping ash into a coffee can. "But he was right about one thing. Those buildings." She jabbed her cigarette at the blueprints. "They're Moretti's Achilles heel. Marcus moved closer, his fingers hovering over a marked-up floor plan of the oldest building, a 6-story brick structure near the river. Red X's dotted the basement level. What are these? Evidence. Renata's boots thudded against the concrete floor as she crossed to a filing cabinet. She yanked open a drawer and tossed a bulging folder onto a work table. Vincent Moretti didn't just disappear in '98. He hid, and he stashed every dirty secret, every payoff, every body in those basements. Marcus's throat went dry. He flipped open the folder. Black and white surveillance photos showed Vincent Moretti younger, but unmistakable. Supervising his crates were unloaded into a building service elevator. Newspaper clippings detailed missing persons cases. A faded police report had entire paragraphs blacked out. Renata leaned over his shoulder, her voice dropping to a gravelly whisper. Clifford spent years gathering this. Could have burned the Morettis to the ground a dozen times over. But he waited. She tapped the newest blueprint, a structural analysis, until he owned the ground under their feet. A cold realization slithered down Marcus's spine. He didn't just want to expose them. He wanted to bury them. Renata's grin showed too many teeth. Now you're getting it. 2 hours later, Marcus staggered out of the pawn shop into blinding sunlight, Renata's words still ringing in his skull. The deeds are clean, but the buildings aren't. You go public with what's hidden there. The Morettis don't just lose property. They face RICO charges that'll put every capo away for life. And Salvatore? Marcus had asked. Renata had lit another cigarette. He'll kill you before that happens. Unless you kill him first. The weight of the decision pressed against Marcus's ribs as he drove back to the motel. He could still walk away. Sign the deeds over. Take Lena and Jaden and disappear. But Clifford's warning echoed in his mind. Don't waste it. The motel parking lot was empty except for a battered pickup truck. Marcus took the stairs 2 at a time, already rehearsing how to explain this to Lena. The door was ajar. Ice flooded his veins. He shoved it open, heart hammering. Lena? Jaden? The room was empty. Suitcases sat half-packed on the bed. Jaden's inhaler lay abandoned on the nightstand. And pinned to the mirror with a switchblade was a note in elegant script. Midnight. Bring the deeds to the Riverside warehouse. Come alone or the janitor's family gets cleaned up permanently. Marcus's knees buckled. He caught himself in the dresser, his reflection staring back at him, wild-eyed, terrified. Clifford's pocket watch ticked loudly from the nightstand. 6 hours until midnight. 6 hours to turn a dead man's revenge into a rescue plan. Blood and blueprints. Midnight came too soon. Marcus stood outside the Riverside warehouse, the deeds burning a hole in his jacket pocket. The building loomed like a tomb, rusted metal siding, shattered windows, the stench of Chicago River mixing with gasoline and rot. Somewhere inside, Lena and Jaden were being held. Somewhere inside, Salvatore Moretti was waiting. He checked his phone one last time. No new messages from Renata. She'd promised backup. But Marcus wasn't counting on anyone but himself now. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the warehouse door. The interior was cavernous, lit only by flickering industrial lights. Crates and old machinery cast long shadows. At the far end, beneath a dangling bulb, sat Salvatore in a folding chair, legs crossed like he was at a damn dinner party. 2 enforcers flanked him, muscle in cheap suits. And there, on their knees beside him, hands bound Lena and Jaden. Marcus's pulse roared in his ears. Jaden's face was streaked with tears, his breath wheezing. Lena's lip was split, her eyes blazing with fury. Marcus, she started, but one of the goons backhanded her across the face. Marcus lunged forward. Don't touch her. Salvatore held up a hand, amused. Easy, Wheeler. We're just having a conversation. He nodded to the enforcer, who yanked Lena upright by her hair. Now, where are my buildings? Marcus forced himself to stay still. He reached into his jacket slowly, pulling out the folded deeds. Right here. Salvatore's smile widened. Good. Bring them here. Marcus didn't move. Let them go first. A beat of silence. Then Salvatore laughed, a rich, horrible sound. You're not in a position to negotiate. He snapped his fingers, and the second enforcer pressed a gun to Jaden's temple. Lena screamed. Marcus's vision went red. Then, a deafening bang echoed through the warehouse. The enforcer holding Jaden crumpled, a dark stain blooming across his chest. Salvatore whipped around. What the... Another shot. The second enforcer dropped. Marcus didn't think. He moved. He tackled Salvatore to the ground as gunfire erupted from the rafters. Bullets pinged off metal, the warehouse erupting in chaos. Lena grabbed Jaden, dragging him behind a stack of crates. Marcus wrestled Salvatore for his gun, their hands slick with sweat and blood. "You're dead, Wheeler," Salvatore snarled. "You and your hoe." A shadow loomed over them. Renata stood there, a smoking pistol in one hand, a crowbar in the other. Wrong. She brought the crowbar down. Salvatore howled as his kneecap shattered. Marcus scrambled back, gasping. Renata tossed him the gun. "Told you I'd have your back." Marcus stared at her, then at the warehouse rafters where two shadowy figures, Renata's people, were already descending. Lena's voice cut through the ringing in his ears. "Marcus. Jaden, he can't breathe." Jaden was slumped against the crates, his face blue-tinged, chest heaving. No inhaler. Marcus was at his side in an instant. "We need to get him out of here. Now!" Renata grabbed Salvatore by his ruined suit collar. "And him." Marcus looked at the man who'd threatened his family, now bleeding, broken. Clifford's voice whispered in his mind. "Build something lasting." "Bring him," Marcus said. "We're not done yet." As they dragged Salvatore toward the exit, Marcus caught a glimpse of the deeds, abandoned on the concrete floor. Tonight, they'd won the battle. But the war was just beginning. The devil's ledger. The safe house stank of antiseptic and sweat. Jaden lay on a cot in the corner, his breathing finally steady after a paramedic, one of Renata's trusted contacts, had administered a steroid shot. Lena hovered nearby, her arms crossed tightly, her gaze flicking between Marcus and the unconscious Salvatore Moretti tied to a chair in the center of the room. Renata tossed a bucket of ice water over Salvatore's head. He came to with a gasp, his scream muffled by the duct tape over his mouth. His shattered knee was crudely bandaged, the fabric already soaked through with blood. Marcus stepped forward, gripping Clifford's old crowbar. "Take off the tape." Renata ripped it free. Salvatore coughed, then spat at Marcus's feet. "You're dead. You know that, right? My family will burn your world to ash." Marcus swung the crowbar down, stopping just inches from Salvatore's good knee. The metal vibrated with the force of the near miss. "Where are the records?" Salvatore blinked. "What?" "The ledgers. The proof your father hid in those buildings." Marcus leaned in, his voice low. "I know about the vaults, about the bodies. I want everything." A flicker of fear crossed Salvatore's face. Then a sneer. "You think you can just walk in and..." Marcus brought the crowbar down again. This time it connected. Salvatore's scream shook the walls. Lena turned away, pulling Jaden's blanket higher over his shoulders. Renata just lit a cigarette, watching with detached interest. Marcus waited for the screams to subside. "I don't have time for your bullshit. The FBI's RICO division gets those records. Your empire crumbles. But I get them first." He shrugged. "Maybe we make a deal." Salvatore panted, sweat dripping into his eyes. "What kind of deal?" Marcus pulled out his phone, played a recording from the warehouse. Salvatore ordering his men to execute a bound family. "This goes public. Even your own people will turn on you. But it disappears if you give me what I want." Silence. Then, "Basement of the Lexington building," Salvatore muttered. "Behind the false wall, in the boiler room. Combination is 34-15-9. Renata snorted. "Too easy. He's lying." Marcus studied Salvatore's face. The twitch in his jaw, the way his fingers clenched around the chair arms. "No, he's not." He turned to Lena. "Stay here. Watch him." She grabbed his arm. "You're not going alone." Renata stubbed out her cigarette. "He won't be. Lexington building, 3:17 a.m. The service elevator groaned like a dying animal as it descended. Marcus flexed his fingers around the crowbar. Renata checked her pistol, her jaw set. "Should have brought more firepower," she muttered. Marcus didn't answer. His mind raced with Clifford's notes. The hidden vault. The decades of crimes documented in Vincent Moretti's own hand. Proof that could end the Morettis. Or get them killed. The elevator shuddered to a stop. The basement stretched before them. A maze of pipes and flickering fluorescence. The boiler room door was marked with a faded red X. Exactly like Clifford's blueprint. Marcus's breath fogged in the cold air as they approached. The combination lock gleamed under Renata's flashlight. 34-15-9. The door clicked open. Inside wasn't a boiler. It was an archive. Floor-to-ceiling shelves held ledgers, VHS tapes, hard drives, a wall of photos, politicians, judges, cops, all with Moretti Sr. at some gala or golf course. And at the center, a steel desk with one drawer. Marcus pulled it open. A single black ledger lay inside, its pages filled with names, dates, dollar amounts. At the top of each page, the same handwritten label, paid in blood. Renata let out a low whistle. Jackpot. Then, a creak from the hallway. Marcus spun as the lights went out. Gunfire erupted in the dark. Fire and fury. The muzzle flashes lit up the dark in jagged bursts. Marcus hit the ground as bullets shredded the air above him, splintering wood and sending papers flying. Renata returned fire, her pistol barking 3 sharp shots into the hallway. A man screamed. "Back door!" she yelled, grabbing Marcus by the collar and yanking him behind a filing cabinet. Marcus clutched the ledger to his chest, his heart hammering against the leather cover. Footsteps pounded closer, too many to count. Salvatore had lied. Of course he'd lied. He'd sent them straight into a trap. A grenade rolled into the room. Renata didn't hesitate. She kicked it back into the hallway just before it exploded. The blast shook the foundations, debris raining down as smoke filled the air. "Move!" she barked, shoving Marcus toward a rusted maintenance hatch in the corner. They crawled through ducts slick with grime, the sounds of shouting and gunfire fading behind them. Marcus's elbows burned from scraping against metal, but he didn't stop, couldn't stop. The ledger's edges dug into his ribs like a blade. They emerged in an alley 2 blocks away, gasping for air. Sirens wailed in the distance. Renata wiped blood from her brow. Salvatore's smarter than I gave him credit for. Marcus stared at the ledger in his hands. He knew he'd come for this. Damn right he did. Renata grabbed his arm, dragging him toward a waiting car. And now he knows we've got it. Safe house, 5:03 a.m. Lena leapt up when they burst in, her face pale with relief until she saw the blood. What happened? Marcus dropped the ledger onto the table with a thud that seemed to shake the room. Salvatore, still tied to his chair, went very still. "You were right," Marcus said, staring at him. "It was a trap." Salvatore's lips curled. "Told you were dead." Marcus punched him so hard the chair tipped over. Lena didn't flinch. Jaden, awake now, watched with wide eyes. Renata flipped open the ledger. This is it. Names. Dates. Payments. Enough to put away every dirty cop, politician, and judge on Moretti's payroll for the last 30 years. Marcus righted Salvatore's chair. But it's not enough. Salvatore laughed through split lips. "Finally getting it, aren't you? You could burn this city to the ground with that book, and my family would still own the ashes." Marcus met Lena's eyes, saw the understanding there. Clifford hadn't just wanted revenge. He'd wanted justice. And justice required proof the world couldn't ignore. Marcus pulled out his phone, dialed a number he'd memorized from a ledger. A groggy voice answered. "Who the hell is—" "Special Agent Whitmore? This is Marcus Wheeler. I have Vincent Moretti's ledger, and I want to make a deal." Salvatore's face went slack with horror. Renata grinned. The game had just changed. Legacy reborn. The FBI arrived at dawn. A swarm of black SUVs surrounded the safe house, agents in tactical gear pouring out like a well-orchestrated storm. Special Agent Whitmore, a grizzled man with sharp gray eyes and a permanent frown, took one look at a ledger and whistled through his teeth. This is a Rosetta Stone of organized crime, he muttered, flipping through pages filled with damning details. His gaze snapped to Marcus. You understand what you've just done, right? Marcus glanced at Lena and Jaden, safe behind a wall of federal agents. Ended this. Whitmore barked orders to his team. Salvatore was dragged away in cuffs, his threats fading into the morning air. Renata slipped out during the chaos, vanishing like smoke just as she'd appeared. By noon, the news broke. Mafia kingpin arrested in historic takedown. Decades of corruption exposed. Mysterious ledger brings down crime empire. The city erupted in chaos, but for Marcus, there was only quiet. He stood in the empty lobby of the Lexington building, his building now, staring at the morning light filtering through dusty windows. Lena joined him, slipping her hand into his. What now? Marcus exhaled, the weight of the past weeks lifting from his shoulders. Now we rebuild. Epilogue, 1 year later. The Wheeler Foundation ribbon-cutting ceremony drew crowds. Reporters snapped photos as Marcus, Lena, and Jaden stood before the newly renovated community center, once a Moretti-owned den of vice, now a haven for at-risk youth. Whitmore shook Marcus's hand. Never thought I'd see the day a janitor outsmarted the mob. Marcus smiled. Had a little help. Somewhere in the crowd, he caught a glimpse of gray hair and a familiar smirk before it disappeared into the city. That night, as Marcus locked up the center, he paused at the memorial plaque near the entrance, in memory of Clifford Wheeler, a man who believed in second chances. Jaden tugged his sleeve. Dad? You okay? Marcus ruffled his son's hair, no longer hearing the wheeze in his breath. Just the bright, clear voice of a healthy kid. Yeah, he said. We're good. The pocket watch in his jacket ticked softly as they walked into the sunset. The end. What would you have done in Marcus's shoes? Let us know in the comments. And if this story inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more real-life tales of courage and redemption. Your support helps us share more voices that need to be heard.